Okay.
Okay.
All right. Greetings to all the participants, panelists, and viewers of the broadcast across platforms. My name is Aryan, and I am the moderator for today's panel discussion. I would like to welcome all of you to the Online Education Leadership Forum's panel discussion series. Today's panel discussion is on the topic Education in the Times of Corona. Are we entering a radically new age of learning? To delve deeper into the topic, I have with me an august panel of stalwart educationists from India and Canada. I take great pleasure to welcome all the panelists. Uh, I welcome Dr. Ashok K. Pandey, Chairperson of the Council for Global Citizenship Education and the Director of Alcon Group of Schools India. He's the author of Launch Inspiring Educational Leadership and the Pedagogical Life Essays on Educating India. He is a recipient of the Lifetime Achievement Award by Ferguson Humanitarian Foundation International USA, Advait Foundation Leadership Award, and President's Award by Government of India for his contribution in the field of education. A very warm welcome to you, sir.
Thank you.
So I would like to welcome Terry Godbolt, Executive Director, Center for Global Education, Canada. Whether it's from Singapore to Seattle or Australia to Alberta, Terry has been helping educators all over the world to integrate authentic, globally minded learning experiences, to empower students to help themselves and see themselves as global citizens addressing some of the most challenging questions that the world faces. For his work in reshaping the classroom, Terry has been awarded the Queen Elizabeth II Diamond Jubilee Award and the ASCD Award for Innovative Teaching. Along with this, he's also been the former high school administrator in Edmonton, Canada. So I welcome Ms. Lakshmi Annapurna Chintaluri, Director Academics of Curious Kids and Jai Hind Public School, India. She is an educational consultant certified in advanced educational leadership from Harvard University. She has 25 years of association in the field of education with experience in India and abroad as a school principal. Along with this, she is a writer, speaker, and a teacher trainer. She is the recipient of the BET Asia Award for collaboration in 2019. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. And we have Mrs. Sita Murthy, President of Association of Heads of IB World Schools, India. She is one of the prominent school leaders in India, along with being the director of education at Silver Oaks International Schools in Hyderabad, Bengaluru, and Visakhapatnam. She is an IB World School leader. I'm sorry, she's an IB workshop leader and school visit member. A very warm welcome to you, ma'am. I also have with me Dr. Amrita Vora, Director of GEMS Education India and Executive Principal at GEMS International School, Gurgaon. She has been an active member of GEMS Global Education Team in Dubai. Dr. Amrita is a certified program leader for Cambridge educational programs for teachers and school leaders. In the past, she has worked with Educomp Solutions, Global Classroom, and Opportunity International USA. Lastly, we have with us Dr. Arnab Singh, Director of Nehru World School, India. Along with this, he is the chairperson of FICCI Arise UP West and British Council School Ambassador. He is an alumnus of King's College London and is passionate about technology, entrepreneurship, and igniting minds. So we thank all the panelists who have joined us. Along with this, we thank Hitachi MGRM Net for powering this panel discussion for us. Once again, I welcome all of you, and we understand that we are organizing this event at an increasingly challenging and uncertain time. So, a time that has brought enormous challenges, changes, and disruption to our lives. So, let us mark this moment with a minute of silence for those who have lost their lives and are in grief to this pandemic, followed by the ringing of the bell to thank the healthcare workers on the front line and everyone carrying out essential roles, selflessly continuing their day to day duties outside the home in support of all of us. So let's take a minute of silence for the victims. Thank you so much. Now let's ring the bell for all the champions who are saving the day. So thank you so much. Uh, let's open the floor to Dr. Arnab Singh.
It doesn't happen very often that you have a very illustrious panel and people who will certainly have much deeper thoughts to share than you, and then you're asked, you go first. It's almost like, okay, the first ball would be try ball. So I hope that I don't disengage any of the people in who are participating in this, and rest of the panelists do get an opportunity to speak to them. So participants, I'm going to be short, and now is possibly all the time when you go take your little break. Will these times have a long impact on education? I think that's a new point. We've already realized that, yes, this has changed educators, it has changed policymakers, learners, parents, everybody's point of view on what continuity of education is, and what synchronous education that we often do in school, that students learn the same thing together, in asynchronous education, where you are master of your own learning and you do it at your own pace. Both of those contexts have changed forever. And if there are some of us who, after having gone through this, would still not think of it as something that should make their pedagogy evolve, then perhaps they're in the wrong profession. I would take the different stakeholders one by one and see what has changed, or share what has changed for them in the present times and what is possibly the long-term impact of this. I would first go to teachers. The whole world, all of a sudden, has started expecting that this teacher is now going to engage students online. It has almost become a given that, yeah, you are a teacher, you have internet at home, you're going to engage students, you're going to send them assignments, and they're going to do it. Take a step back. Even if I was a teacher for 20 years, 30 years, nothing ever prepared me for this. Nothing ever prepared me for this. No professional development, no teachers training course ever even gave me 1 point agenda of there could be a time when there is just no school for months. So we rang a bell for health professionals. Well, if ringing the bell is our way of supporting them, then perhaps there should be a much longer bell for these teachers who are standing up in these times and saying, fine, I'm going to figure this out, and I'm going to figure this out very fast. And when I go live to my students, I would do my very best. So world for teachers has changed forever. But one silver lining that I'm seeing to this is, when all of this is over and we go back to our students, this time nothing would be able to disrupt education. If it is too cold, the school doesn't shut down. If it is too hot, the school doesn't shut down. If it's a rainy day, it doesn't shut down. If there is a civil unrest, it doesn't shut down. No, this time school doesn't shut down. So in the long run, we're actually going to gain days of engagement and days of learning. I was listening to a school principal speaking to me from Hong Kong about a week back. And he said, well, for the world, this may have been around for 6 weeks, but for Hong Kong, it's been around for 6 months because of the civil unrest that we had. So in some ways, we were kind of prepared for this, and this time it is not as difficult. So what the teachers are going through now, my respect to all those teachers who are standing up and delivering, but this has equipped us for everything that comes by. For parents and students, parents are finally getting to realize what a teacher's life is like.
True. Are they?
I am sure if they are not, then they will by the end of the month.
Yeah, hopefully so.
And I am very, very hopeful that this will lead to a stronger bond between teachers and parents in the long run. Parents would now become more sensitive to how much patience a teacher requires with those 25 to 40 students that are there in the class, and how she takes one step every day with these kids. Nothing had prepared the parents for it as well. So this bond will last a long time. Now, for students, I said a little earlier that I have 4 children in my house. We are a joint family. We have 2 boys and 2 girls from 4 years of age till 9 years of age. So we have a fairly interesting spectrum. I would call them the control group. And there are things that we're trying on them before we try them in the classes that we run. Students are probably evolving the fastest because they were born here. All of us on these screens, and some of us in the participant list as well, arrived here. We migrated to technology. We've listened to a radio broadcast. We've seen analog television, black and white and color, and we've arrived here. So for us, this might be, a distant destination. But for these students who were born here and whose first photograph was shared on Facebook, they're finding it fairly easy to navigate this. And if we don't create a lot of trauma around them, they'll probably get by just fine. But as they do, they will remember how adults around me reacted when they were faced with that bigger challenge. So all of us as educators and caregivers and people that younger ones are looking up to, we need to be sensitive to this, that we will become a very strong, important memory for all of these young ones. And they will learn a thing or two about how do you react to a pandemic like this. And hopefully this would never happen again. But if it does, then what we do today might actually prepare them better for the future that's ahead of them. Thank you. Thank you very much for at least the panelists not logging off.
Thank you thank you so much. So I request Dr. Amrita to make her opening remarks.
Thank you, Aryan. And thank you, Arnab. I think you have actually echoed my thoughts completely from the perspective of teachers, particularly. And yes, I think we should all take this opportunity to ring that bell for teachers if we can, because really nobody seems to be doing it. But all said and done, teachers were not prepared for this at all, barring a very minuscule few number of schools where probably the IB school teachers or schools where technology is or blended learning is a genuine regular feature in the school. The children were also, the IDs were already there, the devices were already available, and those schools were way better prepared. The teachers were already using the applications and so on required when you suddenly get onto a technology based classroom. So those were, but the largest part of the education sector in our country is not IB, is not prepared for blended learning yet. But overnight, it's literally magical to see how teachers have learned, adapted. Most of our teachers are from our generation or older, and they are not tech savvy, as Arnab put it. We arrived at this. Our children are much better. This is essentially their domain. So while teachers are still struggling with technology, learning and trying to make everything work, children are already busy finding ways and playing pranks and so on. So the naughtiness in the classroom has just been suddenly transported to the online classroom when all this is happening. And teachers every day, so every day we face another challenges across India. So many schools are now conducting online lessons, and all sorts of ways are being found out. Every day teachers come up with the today children did this, now what? We go back to Microsoft, or we check back with our team in Dubai and other parts of the country and of the world, and we give them a solution. Okay, yeah, for this you can do this. For this you can do that. So it's every day is become a learning process for the teacher. Another thing, which is a very very key aspect here that I want to add, is that yes, we've become prepared for emergency situations. Yes, the schools will never shut down. Um, they'll just move to online modes, hopefully. But learning really needs to move to the hands of the learner. You can't transport, which some schools are probably trying to do. And it's painful to see a child just quietly sitting down and only listen to one lecture after another. And it's literally that, it's a lecture on the, on the screen. The child is dead bored, and that will really not help them to learn. That 80-20 principle, as we call it, that only 20% the teacher needs to be speaking, 80% children need to be completely actively engaged doing something. So that 80-20 principle really is required, and children need to be prepared to take ownership of their learning. Now, how is this happening overnight is with flipped learning and a lot of models. So it's important to ensure that this approach, although teachers are already in a situation, but a lot of applications do help, and children enjoy. So the best one thing that has helped us across all schools is children coming up with a lot of solutions. So we made most of our middle school students and senior students give a lot of solutions. We helped them research, and we told them to find out and you tell us what tools are useful. Whatever you, so the children created a whole library of tools, and some workshops were actually done by children online for the teaching community. Different students did it, and not just teaching community, I mean principals were also included in that. And once teachers are using those, it's really much more beneficial. One key factor that I feel that we must talk about here is the huge divide, the crisis. This has caught us unawares. And schools have a lot of parents who have maybe 2 children, 3 children, or 4 children in a family. There is a lack of devices. Even as smartphones work with a lot of this technology, there is a lack of internet. There are children from EWS in our schools, thanks to the RTE, and they have nothing. So the teachers, apart from conducting all those online timetabled lessons and everything else, are also connecting one-to-one as mentors with children who have no access or very limited access to technology, maybe sometimes just a phone, which is not even a smartphone. So there, the challenge is much bigger. And whenever this is over and schools reopen, we do know, all said and done, that we will need to redo a lot of things to bring those children up to where the others already would have reached by then. So that is one key factor. Another is, well, early childhood. Some schools have decided to tell early childhood students that, for you, we can take it up later. In early childhood is where that whole compassion, that bond that Arnab just talked about between the parent and teacher has become even stronger, because here the parent till about, from pre-nursery till about grade 2, is actually sitting down with the child. And one curious feedback I've been getting from teachers is that it's much easier to deal with children, it's tougher to deal with parents online, because they don't seem to follow ground rules. With children, we work with ground rules, and children are used to all that. And just like we do in the classroom, we've done it here too. But parents don't seem to listen. So we've had to, work with parents a lot more. A lot of engagement needs to be provided. They are scared too. And they are also finding it tough to deal with this situation. They too are caught unawares. So a lot of support is being provided by schools to parents. And yes, that should strengthen the bond, but there is still a lot of resistance to change at the same time, and a lot of worry when parents feel what happens to screen time. The child is consistently just looking at the screen for hours and hours. Some schools are running classes for about 8 hours or so. So what about it? Well, we are following something we call the 20-20-20 principle, which has worked well for us across Dubai. We keep sharing eye exercises, we keep sharing yoga and so many. So I think all the schools are finding ways around it. But initially, what I felt was, thanks to troubleshooting issues, the teacher was feeling that already so much time has been spent logging in everybody and starting off, she would do away with the 20-20-20. Later, we made it mandatory that in between every lesson, you have to do the 20-20-20 principle. It's very simple. Every 20 minutes, 20 feet away, you need to look for 20 seconds. And we've now started finding some innovative ways of doing it, just telling the child, for example, get up, get two blue things and one round thing from around your house, or find out where is your grandmother from, and so on and so forth. Just anything which makes them get up, move about the house and come back. And obviously they'll not be looking at the screen, so there is a break that is provided naturally. So a lot of all this and lots will happen. But yes, we have entered a new normal for education. Blended learning was talked about a lot. Now it will become a very natural, integral feature of many, many schools, because schools would like to be prepared, and I think parents too would like to be prepared for emergencies to come.
All right. Thank you so much, Dr. Amrita, for giving us tips and insights. Now, I mean, say, like, as you know that, like, the theme of the panel discussion is education in times of Corona. And the pressing question is, are we entering a radically new age of learning? So the question is, like, are we entering it? If you say yes, please let us know, like, why do you think so? If you say no, why are we not in such a situation? So I would like to ask this question to Ms. Sita Murthy. So I would really appreciate if this is answered in your response. Thank you so much.
So, to answer your question, Aryan, I would
Yes.
start saying, when the going gets tough, the tough get going. Okay, like how Arnab said, that none of us are prepared for this. None of us are trained to do this. But the best part is the ingenuity, the ideas, the methods, the approaches that we are all trying to find. What I remembered, if I have to compare it with, I go to Himalayan treks every year. I see these water streams there, uh, waterfall. There is a block, they find another way. There's a block, they find another way, and there is a block, they'll find another way. I think it's the same way we schools are also doing now. Whether good or bad, this has come at a time largely for Indian schools when we are almost concluding our academic year. Almost. Okay. So either we have not done the assessments or the graduation or whatever the final exams, or a little bit of teaching is yet to be done, but no large damage has been done to the learning program of this academic year. Now, keeping that in mind, education in Corona times and what are we preparing for from this lockdown, post lockdown in the coming academic year is what we need to probably discuss now. So, what would I say to it? So, how did we deal with it? I think if I answer that, I might also be hinting at how we can find new ways of dealing with this challenge now. So we concluded our academic year and we finished everything. Only thing is we didn't do the formal graduation for them. However, what we did was, a week ago, we started online learning. I'm very particular about this term that I'm using, online learning, not online schooling. Okay. We do not want to do a school 8 o'clock to 3 o'clock or 8:30 to 3:30. But what we want to do is create that momentum of learning in the morning and then help the children develop their own timetable, their own self-paced learning, their own self-directed learning. So my zooming, brooming, cleaning, sweeping, washing team, that's my teachers now. All of us together, because all of us have no maids now. Terry, you may find it interesting. All of us are so used to having maids at home and cleaning and things like that. And because of this, we realize what all we can do now, that we can be independent. So all our teachers are cleaning, washing, cooking, doing every chore at home, and then sitting with the Zoom. Okay. So we all started looking at, are we going to hold virtual classes, or are we going to create videos, pre-recorded videos, and release them every day in the morning at 8:30 and set the momentum for the school day and leave it to them to make their own timetable. We tried it and it worked out extremely well last 5 days now. Okay. We have seen children, and in fact, on the day one, we asked them, wear your uniform symbolically, 8:30, be ready. We'll have an assembly, and we did all that, including our national song, our pledge, our prayer, everything. And parents were super excited to put the uniform on the children, take pictures, videos of it. So what I think I'm trying to say here is, it is not online schooling that we need to look at, online learning in tough days that we are heading to. The challenge comes from, how are we going to bring the learner agency and the design models that we are going to create for them. How are they going to come together to create that enthusiasm or responsibility in learning? Parents should not be burdened with it, because all the parents are at home, and most of the times both parents are working from home now. So we had questions like, if you're going to hold virtual classrooms, I need to have 4 devices at home. That's going to be very difficult.
Absolutely.
What we did was, we know many parents will log in at about 9 o'clock or 9:30 in the morning. So the videos that we talked about, we have pre-recorded videos from teachers and assignments. We release them at 8:30 in the morning. 8:30 to 9:30 is children's time for the screen. And then they're going to sit and do their work, because the design models have been created like that. Then the siblings question, if there are 2 children at home and they have only one device that they have to share, we even, in our letter to the children, we said that every day share your turns. First day the younger one will take the screen time, second day the older one will take. So we addressed even the minutest of the conflicts that one might have at home, and created the whole learning environment. So far so good, it's going very well. We are only looking at open-ended learning. It's something like project-based learning, inquiry-based learning. That's the kind of assignments we've given them. On the lighter side, I must tell you, like yesterday was Good Friday. So a parent had messaged, it's Good Friday, are you going to have school today too? So we said, there's no Sunday, Monday now. Every day is a Sunday. We're all at home. So we didn't do this learning till 31st March. It is only after that we started, because we thought initial lockdown was till 31st March. So we thought it's a temporary phase. But now looking at the long-term phase, we felt that we need to help the parents, partner with them in engaging the children effectively, without too much burden on the devices or the internet at home, or conflicts with parents on, are you really learning, are you watching something else? All these things have been taken care of, and then we created these models. So I feel that we have found ways to keep the learning going, which is very important. Like like Amrita said and Arnab said, that come hell or high water, come snowfall or thunderstorm or tsunami, learning need not be paused for a long time if we are prepared, and this is what is preparing us for that. However, there is a large number of student population out there in the world who cannot access technology, like the children who go to our schools. They're not as privileged. Neither the schools have so much of bandwidth to provide this kind of online learning. That is what I think we need to discuss more, because privileged schools will always find ways to do it. But it is those schools where they have more existential questions, where they need to work on how are we going to keep the learning on even without technology? That is an answer I think all of us together as panelists will have to um, debate on.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Sita Murthy. Now I would like to ask Ms. Lakshmi Annapurna Chintuluri a very specific question. Are we entering a radically new age of learning? One second. Hello?
Yeah, hello.
Yeah.
Can you hear me now?
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
See, looking at the present scenario, it reminded me of something, say, way back in 1998, the American War College, they wanted, it's designed to train their officers for the 21st century. And they brought out a report with where they coined an acronym called VUCA. That is, it stands for, volatile, uncertain, complex, and ambiguous. And that is where we are in today.
Yeah,
Uh,
true.
and as my other panelists, as all of you mentioned, neither the students were prepared for it, nor the parents were prepared for it, nor the schools or the educational institutions were prepared for it. But every one of us every one of them is asking us a question like they would ask an Alexa and expect a right answer for specifically for themselves. And just like Alexa would give an answer to them specifically, their right answer, we as educators are expected to give those answers today. And again here, so this is the challenge that we as educators and leaders face today. And as Bill George puts it, that senior fellow at Harvard Business School, he says, we as leaders in the education fraternity have to work now to transform that earlier VUCA to a VUCA 2.0, where he says it stands for vision, understanding, courage, and adaptability. And this is where we are supposed to lead the school, the children, the parents, and all of them who are looking at us today and expecting us like Alexa to give their individual right answer. This, I mean, and this is the time I think we have to be the ambassadors of hope, the biggest time, whatever, in this scenario. And again, the question that arises is, what is more important, academics or mental health? The kind of stories that I get to hear when I'm speaking to my family and their friends in India, some of the families, especially where the children, where the people are on the front line, the tension is palpable. I don't know what kind of academics they will take into. But here again, I have come across some very interesting, research done by this William Daggett through his International Center for Educational Leadership, where they spoke about 2 R's: the rigor and relevance. And basically what they are trying to do is, we need to Maslow before Bloom. All of us spoke about this Maslow's hierarchy of needs. If the child is not happy, if they don't feel safe, it doesn't matter which level the question of which level the teacher's question lands on the Bloom's hierarchy, Bloom's taxonomy. First, the child's needs have to be met. That is Maslow before Bloom is what we need to work on. And here, this rigor and relevance, where they are speaking about a balance, striking a balance between synchronous and asynchronous learning, where not only having these Zoom classes or whatever, we also need to give them some kind of an open-ended questions. The other day, I was attending a seminar a webinar by Dr. Sugata Mitra. And he says children like to go to school because they like to meet their friends. They like to meet their friends and enjoy with them. And learning happens incidentally. But the main reason why children like to go to school is to enjoy with their friends. So he says, for the teachers now, they should all be giving, along with conducting these lessons, they should all be giving some kind of open-ended activities which helps the children to interact with them, with their friends, either through WhatsApp or whatever, in this, use whatever means they have to interact with each of them, talk to them, and then and then come up with some kind of answers. And then present their case. He even gave an example. Questions can be asked like why so many battles were fought in Panipat, rather than ask them why only when were they fought. And coming to the point of are we entering a new age? Children are learning excellent digital skills. The kind of examples that we hear from parents, that they are spending hours to learn more and more on their own. And for technology that has been which has entered into our education field over the last 2 decades, but I feel that they actually could not get control of the field of education. So is this going to be like a tipping point for education, for technology to take that control of education and spread their wings much further than what they are doing? But come what may, what I feel is the physical space or the infrastructure of the school and the human element of the teacher can never be removed. This is what the children need. This social interaction is what the children need, which they are missing today, and that will always remain, is what it could be my hope also, but that is what I want.
Thank you so much, Ms. Lakshmi. Now we'll move on to Terry. Terry, your opening remarks.
Sounds good. Thank you so very much. I'm joining you from Canada. And so a little bit, actually, like my good friend Annapurna is also joining, but I'm going to give a little bit of a different context. And yet, although I may be joining on the other side of the planet, the stories that I'm going to share are very much in parallel to what I hear from my fellow educators in India. And so thank you for the honor of sharing and being in such an esteemed company. I do want to acknowledge that I'm joining you in Canada from traditional Indigenous land, and acknowledge the Indigenous people and the ancestors who have gathered on these lands that I am sharing and I currently live upon. I'm going to start first off sharing as a former administrator and as a teacher, as an educator in the public system in Canada, in which we have very strong teacher unions and significant percentage of teachers who are in the final half of their teaching career. So when it comes to the question is, are we entering a different age? I think that this is going to spur an age that has already been in transition for many years. But in Canada, where we do have a significant percentage of educators who are in the latter half of their career, they have been resisting the incorporation of technology and using that technology to break down the barriers of the classroom and to make meaningful connections where, yes, they may include a YouTube video or they might include a Google search. But when it comes to fundamentally redesigning the classroom such that they are not the primary source of knowledge, that hasn't taken place. And so many of the tools that are there that are at disposal of teachers have not been adopted. And I think that the very nature that these teachers are now going to be forced to not be at a stage in which the students are right physically in front of them is forcing fundamental change in focus of the classroom. On the teacher side. And as a fellow learner, I think that we are entering a fundamentally different age. And this is one in which students are realizing, you know what? I've been told for however long that I've been in school that my teacher is the source of all the knowledge. And if I just memorize what they tell me and say it back to them, then I'm going to do well. And in Canada is that entire provinces are saying that, okay, you know what, your school is effectively done. Here's your grade. We go to school till the end of June, but we have provinces that are saying that now you can go and you're done and whatever you have at this point. If you want to continue to come to school, it's because you want to learn. And so they have the credentials that they need. And so essentially students could decide, you know what, do I just want to sit back and spend time on TikTok and post on Instant Messenger with my friends? But you know what's interesting, friends, is what we're seeing through the work that we're doing at the center is that there was a time when we would be sharing the connections that we do with our friends across the planet. We'd have 5 or 6 classrooms that would be coming, right? And the teachers would be there. But as I just saw last week when we were connecting with UNESCO, working with Syrian refugee groups that were bringing the arts in and creating centers of healing, we go from 5 or 6 sites that are connecting to seeing hundreds and hundreds of young people from their kitchens, from their kitchen tables, from their bedrooms, who were coming of their own volition to learn, right? Who were coming because they're able to see that this isn't just something that a teacher is telling me, but now I am becoming this focal point of my education. It is what I am desiring to see, that I am going to make that connection. And friends, once our young people realize that their education is about more than test preparation and about learning a textbook, but rather they're seeing the power that their learning can be true, can be relevant, and can be meaningful, there will be no going back. Friends, we wonder why youth have responded so strongly to the call of young people like Greta Thunberg and her league of young people who are striking from schools. Well, for goodness sakes, in this world that we're in now, they should be flocking to schools, right? But when they look at their textbooks and they look at the entrance exams and they look at the world around them and they see the challenges that are facing, and yet they see what's happening in their classroom, they're not seeing that disconnect. And what this age is helping them discover is that I have the power to decide that. And when we can bring together this new educator, when we can bring together this new learner, when we come back, we are going to see something so very powerful and something our planet so desperately needs. And so, yes, it is a new age. And I think it is one that has so very great potential.
Thank you so much, Terry, for your opening remarks and your insights. So I would request Dr. Pandey to give his opening remarks.
Thank you, Aryan, and a big thank you to my distinguished co-panelists. I think everything under the sky has been said, and that makes my the work very easier. But Aryan, I will go back to your original question, which you have repeated several times, sometimes agitatingly also, that why this question is not being answered if we have radically entered the new age. And therefore, I'll try and answer your question, putting some perspective. So the short answer to your question is yes, in capital bold letters. But if we pick the pieces of something which is a radical change, why do we call something a radical change? We call it for 4 different reasons. One is that that change must be enormous. It must be huge, humongous. And who could deny that this change is enormous? One statistics will prove it, that 1.7 billion children in 170 countries are sitting at home. So it is humongous. So therefore, it is radical by that standard. The second is, it should be transformative. It should bring transformation, what we call today as disruption. So it is causing disruption, and it is making us all sit and think, what will be the new definition of education? What will be the new mode of imparting knowledge, and how we are going to assess that knowledge having been imparted. So it is transformative and it is radical to that extent. Also, the third one, which is very, very important in my opinion, is it far reaching? How far it is going to impact us? So I think it goes very, very far into the future as to what is happening today. And we are all, I mean, all the panelists have echoed it, that this is going to have impact from short term to mid-term to long term. And that is why I think it is radical. And the fourth thing is, it should bring about, some innovative efforts. So all my panelists have said that what kind of innovation has just come, almost though the change was sudden, I think the innovativeness was also as much speedy. And therefore, I will just explain it a little bit more, that right now we are all in a survival mode. I'm referring only to how we have responded to imparting education or learning or virtual schooling, whatever. And then in next 2 to 3 months time, if something like goes, probably we will have to pick our bits and we have to pick our pieces and we have to reassemble ourselves so that we get going. And if that also continues for some time, I think the best practices will come out of that. And then probably people will start leading by example. So these three elements of from survival to reassembly to leading by example, which panelists have already attributed to, this will become the part of innovation. So these four parameters, in my opinion, qualify this statement that yes, we have radically entered into the new age of learning. So what is the impact of it? 2 or 3 things quickly I'll tell you. That the emphasis on socio-emotional learning, on character building, on preparing the children for the future, what Lakshmi referred to as VUCA version 2.0, I think that is going to be the new age, a new definition of learning. Arnav mentioned to the new relationship between the parents and the teachers. So that relationship is the second best thing which is going to happen. And the third thing is the educational leadership will have to change its role radically. And from being prescriptive and, and a little bit of demanding, I think we will have to inject a very, very heavy dose of mutual trust, compassion, creating stability around the people we are working with, and of course, bringing in a lot of hope. And the fourth thing, Terry mentioned in the informal conversation, but I'm taking it very seriously. The next 2 things required by all of us will be, of course, meeting the needs of water, and of course, meeting the needs of technological infrastructure, so that we are able to embrace even the most marginalized people. And therefore, these are the 3-4 things which we will have to bring to our response basket. And all of us, let us prepare that before we now start talking about awarding grades to our children, I think we will have to exercise a lot of grace. Thank you.
Thank you so much, sir, for your deep insights. I really appreciate all the panelists for having presented their initial thoughts. Now I would be the devil's advocate to all of you. So I'm going to present to you certain facts, certain things that I discovered in the process of preparing for this panel discussion. So one of the things some of our panelists have mentioned was also struggling with teachers and schools struggling with technology, number one. And the second thing is unavailability of gadgets that we were talking about, the EWS category and all. So my question to you all is why should we be at this point in time when the world is seeming to come to a grinding halt, schools are shut, colleges are shut, why are we paying so much of emphasis and attention to learning, and learning not through platforms that are that support well-being of a child? So there's an increased screen time that the child is facing. So I spoke to a few parents. Some of them, they said our kid has class from 8 to 2, and after 2, like, from 3, they have these coaching classes on digital. So imagine the amount of screen time that the child is going through, number one. Number two, like, we are all hailing this as an innovation. So if you look at Zoom, it was not made for classrooms. And if you look at Microsoft Teams, that was made for corporates. So in that context, how are we innovating? So are we actually innovating, or are we just taking anything that comes handy and say, okay, fine, we are doing something about it? So I want any of you to, like, address this concern.
I think I will give a short remark on that, and then probably some of my worthy co-panelists can take it forward. You see, the issue that you have raised is genuine. I'm not denying it. I have no reason to deny it. But let us, make some kind of a balance that we are put into an emergency situation. And in emergency, something very, ironical is happening. Some people are suffering from plenty, and some people are suffering from paucity, right? So you are saying that some people are suffering because of too much of a screen time, and some people are suffering because they don't have anything to look at. So where do we make the balance? And I leave it at this, and let some other panelists take it forward.
So maybe I would say this, Aryan. I don't want to be prescriptive about this word called learning. I'm sure children are already learning by being at home so many different things. They may not be
Absolutely.
learning what is prescribed by a school, but the life skills that they would have learned by now cannot be undermined at all. Okay. The next part that you asked, the second part of your question, which earlier also I didn't answer, and maybe I should bring it to this point now.
Sure.
I won't say it will radically change, but the transformation has already started, and we, the school leaders, are beginning to learn how do we continue to keep this pace. Like Annapurna ji, you said you heard Professor Sugata Mitra. Okay, long back he had done a research that self-organized learning system, can children learn on their own? Okay, without the intervention of teachers, they can. Even if they don't know the language, they can learn, and it has been proved amply by the project that he had done called Soul. Okay, so I think learning or the paradigm shift in us teachers, particularly in India, we think that unless they come to class and they listen to us, they can't learn anything. There will be a paradigm shift in us, and that will be the beginning of a new wave of learning, I hope.
That's
you.
so
Thank
kind
you.
of you. I have another question to our panelists. Now, this time the question is, so you have parents, like, who are homemakers. They would, like, try to be helpful to the kids. But imagine where, like, both parents are professionals working. How mindful are school leaders in taking care of that situation? Because I liked what Ms. Sita Murthy had spoken about, like, recording the sessions and then letting them do it at their own pace. But as I see, like, majority of the schools, including the IB schools, have adopted Zoom or Microsoft Teams, which I mean, say, like, becomes extremely difficult in terms of because it's synchronous learning. So you have paucity of gadgets. You don't know whether, like, the parents need the gadgets more or the students need the gadgets more. So in this context, like, how are school leaders, because I understand that this is a really challenging time. It's putting us all off guard, but are we mindful enough? Because see, we all want to do something new. We want to contribute back. But the question is, are we using our teachers and our students as experimental puppies, if I can say? So I know, I mean, say, like, this sounds, because a lot of times, like, are we actually looking at this? Because I see that there's a lot of race as to who will do more digital. So in this context, like, what would you like to say? Are school leaders genuinely, like, trying different platforms other than these two? And if yes, if you can bring it to four, that would be great help.
Yeah. Just to share my opinion on this, Aryan. Yes, school leaders, I think, are being really, really flexible because these are very real challenges in front of us. The two platforms, Zoom and Microsoft Teams, are certainly being used extensively between schools, whichever works for whichever school. But fact remains, there is a dearth of devices. There are children who, for most children, this was session break. So many people move to relatives' houses and are actually stuck there. So even if they do have a device lying back home, the parent has to work and the child has to learn, and there is just one device. So flexibility really is the answer, and which is why. And there are all kinds of other challenges as well. For example, an early childhood child or a child in a grade 1 or 2, you can't really expect them to suddenly sit in front of a screen and just, or in a pre-nursery, a child hasn't even met the teacher. There is that, the only thing the child is ever used to probably is watching a cartoon on some screen. So we can't figure out that there's a real human talking to me now suddenly on screen, and I'm supposed to learn something out of it. So videos, as I think Sita Murthy already shared, are being recorded by teachers. Lots of points are being put through. And really, because it needs to be so, learning is a lot more flexible, and we are giving it into the hands of the learner. We have to. It's something that is not, even if the school is not really thinking about it, the circumstances are making them do it. Because, for example, I'll share many schools incorporated something that they are calling independent learning time for the child within the so-called timetable. So the teacher assigns a task, talks about something, and leaves them with an open-ended question or a project, lets them think, and lets them work collaboratively and Teams allows for collaborative spaces, and there are various other modes. If nothing's available, WhatsApp is very easily available for most people, and children are collaborating. They, as somebody mentioned, children come to school because they want to meet their friends, and learning is incidental.
Yes.
And, you know, if you're a child in these times, if you read the article, that's what I tried to bring out.
Yeah.
You know, many people were talking about this is too stressful. Why are we trying to stress children even more? Think of the child. You are on a holiday, but you can't move out of the house. You have nothing to play with almost. You get bored of those games that you probably already had. Your parents are not letting you even meet maybe the child in the neighborhood. So there is a complete lack for the child. And then consistently, whether it is on news or, you know, listening to the discussions between adults around, the child is hearing that world is coming to a standstill. God knows what is happening. So think from the perspective of a child, it creates a lot of stress and it creates a lot of fear. That, and we are social animals at the end of the day. We do need, despite social distancing, we do need to connect with each other. Children are loving the whole idea of being able to connect with their friends. And when they have work to do, and a reason wherein parents are letting them do it, it works. Teachers are very often holding sessions in the evenings. So we may have one session which is in the morning, like she said, 8:30 to 9:30, because we know the parent has to log in after that. And some sessions are being held in the evening, so that when there are siblings and so on, things can be worked out.
That's also a very interesting idea of going about, like, you know, teaching. So
holidays are being used more. So today classes are ongoing, for instance.
So another question is, like, you know, so are we trying to experiment with other platforms? Because non-visual medium platforms, like say podcasts, or like, you know, having a system where you're using textbook more creatively. So if you have any such ideas or insights as to how you're trying to reduce the screen time, please share it with us.
Audible is being used extensively too. And thankfully, Amazon, at least for now, has made it free. So children are really loving listening to books. And many, many good books are available, and teachers are making good use of that. So that is one of the platforms. I'm sure the others have a lot to share.
Thank you so much. Terry, you spoke to us earlier about the social divide that this would create. So the earlier conversation that I had with you, you spoke about the division in society that this would lead to and the social unrest that it could cause, going completely digital.
Well, that's true. I mean, we have communities in Canada, and it may be a surprise to some people in India, but we have particularly Indigenous communities in Canada in which there is not access to running water, and in which we have families that are living who do not have access to technology and who do not have access. But an interesting thing is starting to occur in some of those Indigenous communities is they're looking back to different ways of knowing and different ways of showing their learning. Mm-hmm. And we see some of these communities going back to more traditional ways of living, and saying that it's not necessarily just about some of these European and colonial ways of expressing learning and of being taught, but rather if we go back to our traditional roots, we can find strength there. And I think that this is what is going to be key, is and it's why we have seen the level of separation from young people in the classrooms, is when they look at their textbooks, or whether they're looking at a textbook, a video, a podcast, if they look at the world around them and they do not see a relevance, they do not see a connection, they do not see a meaning to the learning that's taking place, we see young people divorcing themselves from that. And what the power of this is where we have teachers who are able to reach out and help our students to find meaning, whether that's finding meaning through a podcast, whether that's finding meaning through some connection to their traditional ways of living. This is what our educators need to strive to do. So it's about more than a test. This is now about touching children's soul and allowing them to express that in the learning that's going to be taking place.
Thank you so much, Terry. Dr. Arnab, I have a question for you. What kind of, or what system of support should school leaders be providing to educators at this juncture? So how should schools go about, setting up protocols as well as infrastructure and support? So if you can give us insights, that would be great.
I think first thing that a school leader can share with their team is, I'm okay if you make a mistake. I'm absolutely fine if you make a mistake. In fact, I can almost guarantee that you will. And once you do, let's have a conversation about it and possibly have a laugh. But what that would enable is that everybody would not need to make that same mistake again. We would all, so the lesser humiliating I can make a mistake, the more my team would benefit from it. That'd be my first thing that I would want to share with the teachers. Second thing I would want to remind them would be, there is this old phrase, and I've said this very often and I will repeat it: God, give me the courage to change the things I can. God, give me the strength to accept the things I cannot change. But above all, especially in post-corona times, God, give me the wisdom to know the difference. With these questions that are being asked of educators about screen time, synchronous learning, asynchronous learning, and what is the long-term impact of this? Everybody who asks us that question should perhaps think of this and say, what is my best case scenario right now? What is the best I can do? And to those parents who are asking us these questions of why are you delivering these lessons to us online, I would say, well, why don't you make the only online time or screen time available to your child the screen time that is there in these classes? And especially to keep the engagement going for students, there are two parts of this problem. One is to get the learner on the platform. And second is to keep the learner on the platform. Because you are fighting with some fantastic content out there in animation, in computer video gaming, some very engaging content is on the other side. So when I, as a student, have that device, that is what my teacher stands up against. So to all those teachers who are trying to, create those bridges every day, it might make sense for you to engage these students and let the content take a slightly backseat. To ask them questions that would keep them engaged for a long time. I'll give you an example. If I'm teaching functions in mathematics, I could either be telling the child, okay, so fine, here is plus, minus, multiply, divide. Now I'm sending you a worksheet, do these 20 questions. The other way to flip this would be, okay, I'm telling you that the answer is 40. Your homework is, what is the question? And how many questions can you come up with? And this teacher is going to see the class go abuzz. The next day, I wouldn't be surprised if there is a child who's got a 2-page long question to which answer is 40. So we need to think of how am I engaging that 5-year-old brain, that 10-year-old brain, that 15-year-old brain, and keep him there in the class. And how do I make sure that that hunger of getting back into that session the next day and say, you know what, I cracked this. And as a school leader, that is what I hope my team is able to do. And that is something I hope that all of us are able to do. And we're not fighting with this content in just these times. When we were studying, our teachers were fighting against MTV. Every day they would give us homework that would have to fight with an MTV to say, what am I going to do with my time? So this is a new normal. It's here to stay. And the last thing I would tell my teachers or share with them is that there are going to be false summits in this. There are going to be times when you would think, okay, the lockdown is now getting over. Next week, we'll be back in school. And then there will be times when we will not. And then we will feel that time is here again, and again there would be not. So we need to keep our strengths alive. We need to share with each other, and we need to accept making mistakes. And let's just hope that we don't make the same mistake twice. But even if we do, these are not the times I would moan about it.
Okay. Now
Can I come
Yes,
in?
sir.
Arnav,
Sure,
here,
sir.
just a minute to add here. This is the best time for the school leaders not to be those who know all, but to be those who care for all, right? So we have to be a caring leader at this point of time. We have to create systems. We have to do professional development. We have to do hand holding. And of all, I think we have to ensure that the enthusiasm keeps going. So that is something very important. And, to reduce a little bit of screen time you asked earlier, I think school leaders should engage more of the music teachers, the art teachers, the drawing teachers, and bring in them also in the curriculum or online teaching, learning, planning, so that, the children will be more interested in doing it. And fostering student agency at this time is very important. Children are already so much savvy to technology, and how can they do advocacy, how they can document things online, how they can create their own document of action taken. I think these things should find a greater space in our programs during these times than any other time.
Sir, thank you so much. You spoke of student agency. So I have a question on student agency. See, we are all talking about fostering student agency. But as school leaders, have we taken consent of the parents as well as the students before we went on the online platform? And see, we all started at our own violation saying, let's go online. But were parents' consent taken? Number one. Number two, were students onboarded? And if schools who are joining you right now, what should be the protocol that they should follow before they introduce online learning to their communities? So I think we have Dr. Amrita with us who would answer. Yes.
Yeah, so very true. taking that consent is very important, and onboarding everyone is very, very key, which is the reason why before starting anything full swing online, we introduced a lot of very small demos and a lot of brief snippets of various ways in which learning can happen during this time. Something that we launched early on was what we call language enrichment, wherein teachers are sharing a lot of thinking tasks to support children improve on language skills using just WhatsApp. Thereafter, we launched some YouTube channels and things which were useful for children. So, wherein very small, like I love that question, answer is 40. So, questions, thinking questions, I'll call them, of this nature were provided, and children were thinking and connecting back with their teachers. Then we had a really detailed remote learning program policy defined, very detailed learning contract made for parents, a separate one for pre-primary till grade 2, because the expectations there would be a little different from parents, and a separate one from upper primary and till grade 12. And the parents were sent the contract with clear, outlined expectations as to what to expect, what support we need from you as a parent, what support we are more than willing to provide as a school, and how is a student looking at. So the parents and students signed different, what we call remote learning contracts. This was done not just in our schools in India, but across the globe everywhere. And of course, we had to add in different things to ensure local viability. A lot of concerns shared by parents were incorporated in this, and individualized contracts were also created with certain parents, because you do need a buy-in before anything begins, and you do need to set ground rules for everybody before anything begins. There will be resistance to change. This is also a change. So you do need to, support people, help people adapt as well. Adaptability is a very key skill. It was easier with students. It was a little tougher with parents. But ultimately, I think everybody agreed. And by the time we were into week 2, things looked much more streamlined. Week 1 was a little tougher. And we kept arriving at solutions every day, and we kept adding on. So yes, one thing I just want to add here as a leader, while so many really good points have already been shared by Arnab and Mr. Pandey, I think as leaders, the one thing most importantly we need to do is listen. Listen and observe. Be there. I'm here and I'm listening. Whether it's a parent or a teacher or a child, I'm here to listen. And I know I will try from within you all. I will try and I'll find solutions in the same listening and share with everybody. I think that is something that is really helping the team building and also people connecting and that bond between everybody.
This is lovely. I have the last question to Dr. Mrs. Sita Murthy. The question is say we all agree that going online will be the new normal. So in this context, when you look at schools, the relevance of a physical school, you could see it as diminishing, or do you see it as still relevant? Number one. Number two, as a school, do you see that physical schools are under threat because of the new normal? So this is something that I would like you to.
Not in the near future, no. Just because we are going through this phase now, and we are going on online learning models, I don't think man is a social animal. Let's not forget that. We need the peer group interactions. Forget about children. See how happy we are talking to each other here. This social interaction works like an energy pill for all of us. And we learn from one another. So I don't think physical schools will ever be in threat. They'll never be in threat.
Yes.
Nor will they ever diminish. They may go through different transformative stages, but they are here to stay. Because we need to work, we need to meet face to face, to palm up the energies on one on the other. So we are here to stay.
Yes, Dr. Arnab?
I want to just add to what Sita just said. Is it the reason why a child goes to school is not just to learn? We are caregivers as well.
Yeah.
So technology is not going to replace the teacher. But the teacher who uses technology effectively will perhaps replace the one that doesn't.
That doesn't. Yeah.
That time is perhaps now than it was maybe 3 months back. But if there is an educational establishment that should have that question before schools, it would actually be universities. So how is the university going to engage that learner? Because by the time a student is getting to university age, the caregiving portion of the expectation is now transferred to the learner. So you're independent and you're responsible for your own safety and security. So perhaps first the PhD programs, then the master's programs, then the graduation, then maybe look talking about school. But by then we'll probably be in the next century.
So that was lovely. So we'll open the panel to questions from the audience.
Can I just add one point? Can I just add one point here?
Sure.
Okay. Basically, as Mrs. Sita Murthy said, the physical infrastructure and the human element of the teacher can never be replaced. See, as Dr. Arnab said, teachers are caregivers also. Teachers are trained to listen with their hearts. There's a lot of empathy that is transferred. Even today, one of the main reasons why, in spite of this COVID-19, why we are having these online lessons, children want to see their teacher. Whether it is in the form of videos or online Zoom sessions, that they have to interact, that they see the teacher. Whether there is learning or not is secondary. That is not the main objective today. What Stephen Covey says, seek first to understand, then to be understood. This is how teachers are trained. They can listen with their hearts, and children perceive that very well. And this is one of the reasons why the infrastructure of the schools, this human teacher element and the social organization of the school will be very difficult to be replaced, whatever come what may. This is my take.
Thank you so much. So here's a small instruction for all the people in the audience. So there's a button, there's a reaction button where you can raise your hand. So if you raise your hand, we would allow you to answer. I think Miss Sindhu has raised her hand. So Miss Sindhu, your question. Hello, Miss Sindhu.
You'll need to unmute her.
No, I have unmuted her. Okay, we have a question from Priyank. Priyank, can you ask your question?
Am I audible now?
Yes.
Yeah, Priyank, go ahead.
So the question is basically, see, one second. So in these times of distress, we can understand there are a lot of students who are not privileged enough with the facilities of facilities and all. Some of the schools, they don't have the access to technology and everything. So I really want to understand that what can be done to bring these kids who are less privileged to the mainstream, so that they, after 2 or 3 months, once this lockdown opens, or once things comes to normalcy, they don't feel left out.
Who would you like to ask this question to?
I would request Ma'am Lakshmi to answer this question.
Okay. Basically, I'm associated with a school which has a lot of tribal children in it. And this is one situation that we are facing right now. I'm experiencing this right now. And these children who come from interior tribal villages, and many of them don't have access to even smartphones. And we are now working to, first of all, I can't buy smartphones for all of them today. But for those who have, at least, we are trying to educate them to use something like WhatsApp. They don't have any access to emails or anything also. They were all with us till the day before the lockdown in residential, as part of the residential school. But today, once the lockdown has been announced, we had to send them home. And now we are trying to reach them through some means or the other. I mean, this is again, we need to think about ways and means as to how and what we can do. This is a real life situation that we are facing. I am facing in one of the schools that I am associated with. It's a reality that all of us have to do. We have to come up with some kind of an innovation. Many of the places where some of the people have a WhatsApp, smartphones, they don't have internet facilities in those villages. So how am I going to reach them? So we are trying to form a chain of passing messages to somebody in that village. And lot of innovative methods are coming up now. Ideas are coming up from teachers. And the teachers and others who can contribute in whichever way possible.
May I add something, if you don't mind?
Sure.
Yeah.
I was just thinking that let's go to a more deeper perspective on what is learning. All these children who are in the villages, who are in remote areas, in my opinion, are more learned. More learned in natural setting. They know more mathematics, more science, more natural science than in urban scenarios or in privileged schools where everything is formally articulated for them. Whereas these children, because I work with children in rural areas, about 12 schools we support, the kind of mathematical perspectives or concepts that they have about estimation or capacity, volume, children in urban settings don't have that. So I just feel everything need not be so formulated and articulated. There is something called free play, free learning, natural learning. In this temporary phase that we are in, say 1, 2, or 3 months, these children will emerge to be more fundamental learners than, just like Ken Robinson said, schools will destroy creativity, though I don't like to agree with him. But I think in their case, they have more time to explore what they can be than doing that homework given by the math teacher and the science teacher. We need not worry so much about how do we deliver the syllabus to them, because they are fundamental learners, natural learners, and they are survivors. That survival skill children in urban schools do not have.
Thank you so much. So any other questions from the audience?
If I might add a little bit to that as well, and I just want to really build on what Sita says. In some ways, we're starting from this saying that, well, what we were teaching in schools before was the best thing to be teaching them. Are those and maybe where we were struggling, many of the populations we're most concerned about, we have seen that traditionally in schools, we have not done a very good job meeting their needs. So maybe the question now is it a time for us to reanalyze, as Sita was saying, what are the most important skills that we provide for our students? Is it critical thinking, or is it some algorithmic function that they can memorize and apply? Maybe we need to rethink what is most important. And then it's not a matter of getting them more screen time, but maybe it's a matter of empowering them, as I was saying, like for our Indigenous students in Canada, maybe it's a way of validating the knowledge that they do have and empowering them to go deeply there. And then when they come back, we don't say, this is what you've missed, but rather we're going to create a learning ecosystem that is going to acknowledge that as valuable. And so you haven't missed anything. Rather, now our ecosystem is more healthy because I am going to find a place for what you bring to it.
Thank you so much, Terry. We have Dr. Sayeda Aga, who would like to ask a question.
Hello, good morning, everyone. Can you hear me well?
Yes, yes,
Yes.
yes.
It's really very, very nice to be with you all and to listen you all. And it's make me sometimes like feel like homesickness to go back to India. Just a small question I want to ask as the related to the previous question, like the villagers and the people, those who don't have technology, those who cannot attend our online classes, and the curriculum like we are running like CBSE. So how we are going to fill the gap for those kids, especially for 9 to 12th, for senior secondary, because we have a fixed curriculum, we have syllabus, we have portions. How those kids will come up? This is just my small concern about them.
All right. Who would you like to ask this question to?
Ashok sir, one of my ideal person for me, really. Really, sir.
Ma'am, you have put me under a lot of pressure.
Sir,
But right
it's,
now, I will suggest to you. I don't know which part you are calling from.
I am calling from Saudi Arabia, sir.
Oh, you are in
KSA.
Saudi Arabia.
Yes,
Okay.
yes.
Assalamu
And
alaikum.
it's Walaikum Assalam, sir.
So,
It's 1 month today we have started the online classes. Our
I know,
school
you
goes on
know,
9.
once you are saying Saudi Arabia, I have had the privilege of working from there. 6 years I was there. And believe me, Saida ji, when I was in Saudi Arabia, even when the world was functioning very normal, most of the things for 9 to 12 children were not available in Saudi Arabia. You know, things would take months to reach Saudi Arabia, the books. You get my point?
Before, but now the things has been changed.
Yes. So what I'm saying is that we have to learn how to negotiate the adversities. And, you know, everybody's context is different. So let us analyze our own context. What are the realities of our context? And what are the options available? And within those options, which ones we are willing to take? I think this exercise is to be done. All of us cannot do all the things. So we have to lower our level of expectation, number one. Number two, we cannot be perfectionists. Number three, we cannot be impatient. Number four, every syllabus, every exam, every periodic test can wait for some time. And in these times, we will be able to find out as to what is the best course. If nothing else, we can send things through email to all the children. If nothing else is working, right? We can share things on WhatsApp. We can, you know, train some of the teachers to record their videos. You know, please use the platforms by CBSE, NCERT like Diksha, you know, Swayam, you know, all these platforms are available. And in Saudi Arabia, I believe everybody has access to internet. I can assure you that. So I will not be able to tell you the customized solution for every child, but there is a way forward to find a solution in general. I'll just give you one example, Saida ma'am. When we were there in Saudi Arabia, you know, children are restricted. They cannot move around very freely in any case, particularly the expatriate children. And at that point of time, instead of calling the children from 10, 20, 30 kilometers, we used to call them at a cluster point where a teacher was there. And from that locality, 10, 15 children used to come and we used to teach them. I'm just giving you this parallel that in that context, if this could be done, I'm sure there is a lot which can be done in the present context also.
So thank you so much, sir. We have two other attendees who would like to ask the question. So we have online Ms. Sunita Matu. So your question, please.
Thank you for your invaluable inputs. There's always a divergent solution to any problem. That is what exactly we are trying to do at this moment. Certainly, it is going to spur the blended learning wherein technology can be used to create, communicate, and collaborate. But my question at this point is, you know, we have a lot of heterogeneity in our school wherein children have different needs. And somewhat we are ignoring them at that particular moment, wherein they need one-to-one interaction, wherein need a different, methodology, pedagogy. So how do we deal with that?
Who is this question directed towards?
Anyone, Dr. Pandey, Mr. Terry, anyone can answer it.
Yeah, so Terry, you take it please first.
I think that our strength is going to be in the diversity that we're going to be able to reach the children with. I think as school leaders, for us to be able to do everything we can to create a place where our staff are able, and I really appreciated, I forget which of the panelists spoke about it before, but providing students with not just one method of instruction, but opportunities to look at art, opportunities to look at music, opportunities to look at physical education, so that we have as many different methods of communicating ideas. We have as many different ways of expressing learning as possible, so that as many learners can be validated as possible, I think is going to be key. And that is done by the leadership that the administrators are able to give. Where we're making sure that nobody is off on their own going rogue, and but rather we have a healthy ecosystem where everyone is able to play together.
Yeah, I would just like to add here. Yeah, Sita, you go ahead, please. Yeah. So, I just want to tell, I don't believe in discrimination, but at this point of time, ma'am, you can do a little bit of positive discrimination. So you talked about diversity and heterogeneity. So please, if you can concentrate a little more who are on the lower side of the ladder and who have been marginalized and who needed a little bit more support, if you can devise a mechanism to handhold them at this stage a little more than who are more capable and can manage, and they are self-directed learners in their own way, I think it will do a little bit more good.
May I please add?
Sure, I think Sita wanted to say something. Yeah.
Sita, after you, Sita.
I think all of us are already looking at one size does not fit all. We're also looking at differentiated instruction in our classrooms, even before this thing has been, affecting us. So the advantage, as Dr. Pandey said just now, when we are uploading learning models through technology, why don't we have differentiated instruction models while addressing learner styles, multiple intelligences, everything can be planned, and you are addressing that learner who wants more, addressing that learner who needs support, addressing that learner who just wants to maintain that pace. I think the advantage we have now is we can design these three models, or you're creating one particular task wherein you're telling, if you can do this, like, I always have one way of motivating students to say, if you're a long race runner, do all the 20 questions. If you want to run just at least halfway, do 10 questions. You want to satisfy yourself, do at least 5 questions. And I have everybody doing 20.
Absolutely.
Okay. There are multiple ways that you motivate children or support children through designing your models for differentiated instruction also. I think that will help, and we have the right time for it now, without the pressure of school routine, running to the school bus, attending the school day. We have so much time to support the learners who need support from us.
Absolutely.
Just add to that, thank you for talking about differentiated instruction, and that's very true that this diversity exists in every classroom, whether it is virtual or in these times or earlier, and differentiated instruction plays a part.
Yeah.
One thing very, very key for differentiated instruction to function well is assessment for learning. And what we are finding with technology, interestingly, is that the teacher is getting a lot of ready tools, which are helping the teacher get immediate feedback on which child is able to do what and which child is finding it tough and what area, what aspect. So the teacher is able to reach out. Another thing is also, interestingly, of all things, theater has come in very handy. So yes, dance, music, and teachers are putting in the efforts, but theater and education is really proving to be useful and something that children really look forward to during these times. One thing working very well for us is also teachers had identified certain children who needed really a lot of extra support, because it was session end and the teachers were working at the final term reports and stuff. So see, they figured, okay, this child really needs a lot of support with math per se or some other subject. So what we started is a mentorship program where teachers are giving individualized support on that particular subject to that child. Sometimes online lessons are possible. Sometimes, given the paucity of devices and other challenges that we have, phone calls also work well. People may not have a smartphone, but they do have phones. So even a landline, that also is being utilized. Teachers are making those individual calls and sometimes conference calls, and that is really proving to be beneficial.
Thank you so much. I have one question to complement this. This is from Mr. Arijit Ghosh from. So he's posed this question on YouTube. So the question is, how do school leaders ensure that teachers don't go back to lecture mode or rote learning methodologies once we get back to the old normal? So this is a question.
When you taste something nice, you don't want to go back to the old taste.
Yes.
Right? So teachers are exploring, oh my God, without my presence, children are able to learn. This means there is a new way of teaching and learning. So I'm sure teachers, we don't have to, as school leaders, monitor them. When you enable somebody, they know how to use that capacity with them. Controlling, monitoring does not work. Enabling works, empowering works. So I think teachers are now feeling very enabled and empowered. And they're also seeing that how children can learn with all the time that they have right now. I don't think they will go back so easily unless parents want it.
Parents will keep forcing it and teachers will keep trying and that will continue, because we, all said and done, we still have that battle of teaching to the test and CBSE and the other challenges put together.
So now, I mean, so since you, we have one person who's attending and would like to ask you a question, Prarthana Thakur. So can you hear us? Hello?
Oh, can you hear me?
Yes, Prarthana, go ahead.
So it's very good to listen to you all. It's very informative. So we have foreseen this situation in our school about this coronavirus and lockdown, and we have started rigorous training for our teachers for these online sessions, introduce Zoom, Google Meet, Edpuzzle, every single thing we have trained them. Teachers have worked so hard day and night preparing their sessions and everything. When they have conducted the sessions, at the end, we were having the discussion. Teachers are coming and saying that, ma'am, it's becoming very challenging task to maintain the discipline in online sessions. Children are keeping their audios on and not following the etiquettes and chatting with each other. And this is creating a very challenging task. After putting in a lot of efforts, at the end, we are realizing that we are not reaching to those objectives, what we have set for the class. So how to inculcate this one? This requires a lot of integrity and discipline from students' side. And it's creating, I don't know, these children are too good, smart when they are in the class, but is it because of the excitement? Would it be for a short time, or else is it going to continue as a challenging task for the teachers forever? It's now we are facing this challenge right now. I wanted anyone can answer. Sita ma'am, you can also answer.
The same thing is coming to my mind. Is it online schooling or online learning? What are we doing?
Exactly.
Okay. And if we know how to engage children in a class physically, we should know how to engage them even virtually. But if we are just replicating a physical class even virtually, then we are not doing the right thing. This question will not come if we know why we are doing this virtual class. How do we engage them? How do we build a self-responsibility? After all, the teacher is struggling so much to come online and lead a class.
Exactly.
And children are not made to realize that. At least let the learning acquire more importance than the teacher's presence. That, you know, the student should realize that this is for me and not for some virtual play over here.
I think, Prarthana, of course, we cannot give you any prescribed medicine here, but I can tell you 2 or 3 things. Our
Sure.
children are also very excited, right? They are also, playing with a new medium. And therefore, a little bit of concession you can give them, maybe a day or 2, they will settle down. Number 2, there are certain precautions that teachers can take, and that will reduce it to a great extent. And the third is, of course, the teachers have to, reach out to them in a very persuasive, negotiating, mode, and not get bogged down by it. So a little bit of patience, some tolerance, negotiation skills, and bringing some sense of responsibility among the children. And if nothing else works, please bring in the parents also at this stage. In any case, we always deal with children's problem by bringing in parents. So even that option is also open.
Thank you.
Add
Yes.
to that,
Sure, sure.
children are wanting to meet other children, and it may just be helpful that towards the beginning, if you let some informal communication happen where children have the time to engage with each other and they feel like a part of the classroom and back again and all of that. Of course, some strategies can be utilized, like the teacher can be a presenter, otherwise children who are even as attendees, they tend to mute each other and things. So some pranks, children are better than us in technology, so they will play. And let's enjoy it with them. And what happens to work well is asking them, now tell me what is the solution to, I enjoyed what you did, this is a good thing, let me learn as well. So it's more to do with learning and giving a lot of freedom and space to the child, and letting them feel that it is for them, that this is all happening. Letting them feel comfortable is going to be really, really helpful.
Thank you. Thank you so much. So we just have a couple of minutes before we end the panel discussion for today. I really love the thought. It's a food for thought for all school leaders. Are we doing online schooling or online learning? That was brilliant. So if you're able to answer that, I'm sure you'd be able to navigate and lead through this crisis. Like Ashok sir always says, leading through crisis. So this is the thing. Thank you so much. I thank all the panelists.
Thank you
For enriching the discussion on this. So we have the next panel discussion on the 17th of April at 9 a.m. So you can follow us on our Twitter handle and on our social media platforms to get a link to that panel discussion. So the theme of the discussion would be the same as education in the times of Corona, but we would look at different dimensions of this situation. So thank you so much. I thank all the panelists and the audience and everybody who's watching this from the bottom of my heart for making it successful. Thank you so much. Thanks, Atharva.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank
now
you.
I can tell Terry and Lakshmi good night.
Okay, good night.
To the rest of the panelists, have a nice day.
Yes.
And nice weekend.
Yes. Thank you so much. And all of you have a good day. And
It was
Aryan,
wonderful meeting you all.
Thank
Thank
you
you so
so
much.
much.
Have a good day.
Thank you.
Done a great
Thanks a
job.
lot. Thank you.
And thank you so much,
Aryan.
Terry.
Thank
you,
you,
sir.
Aryan. You did a great job. Congratulations.
Thank you, sir. Bye-bye. Take care.
Congratulations.
Okay, bye-bye. Okay, bye-bye.